The officiant had just reached the part about "speak now or forever hold your peace." And honestly, I thought it was just a formality. No one ever objects, right? It's just a line they say in movies. But then the heavy oak doors of the venue burst open, slamming against the stone walls with a deafening crack. Every head in the room whipped around. Standing there, framed in the doorway with her hair a mess and her face streaked with tears and running mascara, was my ex-wife, Chloe. She took a staggering step forward, her voice echoing through the silent hall. "Don't do it, Michael. You can't marry her. It's a mistake." My bride, Anna, squeezed my hand, her knuckles turning white, but her face remained a mask of calm composure. I didn't look at Chloe. I kept my eyes on Anna, the woman who had helped me rebuild my life from the ashes Chloe had left behind. She was screaming about divorce regret, about how she'd made the biggest mistake of her life letting me go. But what she really regretted was losing the ATM she thought I was. The truth is, my ex-wife didn't love me. She loved the lifestyle I provided, a lifestyle she believed was gone forever the day our divorce was finalized. She had no idea that the modest life I lived after we split was a choice, a temporary step back before a giant leap forward. She didn't know about the company I'd been building in secret, the one that had just been acquired for a sum that would make her eyes water. She saw me standing here, marrying a woman she considered beneath her, and assumed I was still the same broken man she'd discarded. You might be wondering why my ex-wife would go to such insane lengths to stop my wedding. Why now, after 2 years of silence? The answer begins with a lie she told on our first date. A lie that eventually entangled my own family and set me on a path that would cost me everything before, finally, giving me the chance to reclaim it all. To understand Chloe, you have to understand my family. I have an older brother, David. To my parents, David was the sun, moon, and stars all rolled into one. He was the golden child. He was charismatic, funny, and effortlessly popular, but he was also lazy, entitled, and had a talent for racking up debt. I was the opposite. I was quiet, hardworking, and responsible. I was the scapegoat. From a young age, it was my job to clean up David's messes. When he broke a neighbor's window playing baseball, I had to use my lawn mowing money to pay for it. When he failed a class in high school, it was my fault for not tutoring him enough. When he crashed his first car, a brand new convertible my parents bought him for graduation, I was the one who had to work a second job to help cover the insurance hike. My parents' logic was simple. David had potential, and my role was to provide the stable foundation from which he could launch. My income was never truly my own. It was a family resource. A significant portion of my paycheck went to covering David's latest failed business venture or my parents' mortgage whenever they overspent. I was the family's emergency fund, their retirement plan, and their beast of burden, all in one. I accepted this role because I craved their approval, a single well done that never came. They didn't see my sacrifices. They saw my duty. This was the world Chloe stepped into. The lie she told wasn't extravagant. On our first date, she looked me in the eyes and said, "I just find it so admirable how devoted you are to your family. It shows you're a man of character." She didn't see a dysfunctional, codependent mess. She saw a well-trained workhorse who could be easily steered. She saw my ingrained sense of obligation not as a flaw, but as a feature she could exploit. She praised my loyalty and my work ethic, making me feel seen and valued for the very things my family took for granted. She wasn't falling in love with me. She was interviewing a candidate for the position of funding her entire life, and I had just passed with flying colors. Our marriage started exactly as Chloe had planned. She seamlessly integrated herself into my family's ecosystem of need. It was a masterclass in manipulation. She and my mother became best friends overnight, a fearsome duo united by their shared interest in my wallet. If Chloe wanted a lavish vacation to Europe, she wouldn't ask me directly. She'd mention it to my mom, who would then call me and talk about how Chloe deserved a break, how a good husband provides, and how it would be a great opportunity for my brother David to find himself in Spain. Before I knew it, I was booking 5 non-refundable first-class tickets on my credit card. David, of course, contributed nothing but his presence. Chloe and my mother would send me pictures of themselves shopping in Paris, holding up designer bags I knew I'd be paying off for the next 6 months. The caption would read, "Thinking of you. Work hard." Chloe became David's biggest cheerleader. She encouraged his harebrained schemes, framing them as brilliant entrepreneurial ventures. "Michael, you have to support him," she'd say, her voice full of fake sincerity. "This could be his big break. It's an investment in the family's future." So, I invested. I poured thousands into a gourmet dog food truck, a subscription box for artisanal shoelaces, and an app that was supposed to be the Uber for houseplants. They all failed, and each time I was left to bail David out while Chloe consoled him, telling him he was a visionary ahead of his time. I was working 80-hour weeks at my tech job, my hair starting to thin from the stress, just to keep all the plates spinning. I was funding a lifestyle I didn't even have time to participate in, but in the quiet hours of the night, from midnight to 3 a.m., when the house was finally silent, I had a secret. It was a small software project I'd started years ago, a passion that was entirely my own. It was a data optimization tool I worked on not for money, but because I loved the challenge of it. It was my escape, the one part of my life that Chloe and my family hadn't touched, hadn't tainted. They didn't know about it because I never told them. It was too precious to share. It was the only thing that felt like mine. I didn't know it then, but those stolen hours, fueled by cheap coffee and sheer will, were forging my escape route. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I remember it was raining. Chloe called me at work, her voice sickly sweet, and asked me to come straight home for a special family dinner. I should have known it was an ambush. When I walked in, my parents and David were already there, sitting around the dining table with neatly arranged folders in front of them. It felt less like a home and more like a boardroom where I was about to be downsized. Chloe kissed me on the cheek and guided me to my seat. "We have some wonderful news," my mother announced, beaming. David, with a smug grin, explained that he'd found the perfect house. It was a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in the city's most expensive suburb. He slid a glossy brochure across the table to me. I glanced at the price and my stomach dropped. It was nearly $1 million. "We've all talked it over," Chloe said, placing her hand on mine. "And we have the most amazing plan." The plan was simple. I was going to provide the 20% down payment. $200,000. They had it all figured out. I would drain my 401k, sell my stock options from work, and take out a personal loan. David would pay me back when he got on his feet. My father clapped me on the shoulder, saying, "It's a solid investment in your brother's future, son. We're all family here." They all looked at me, expectant, smiling. They had no doubt I would agree. It was just another Tuesday, another sacrifice for the family. But as I looked at their faces, my entitled brother, my enabling parents, and my wife, the woman who was supposed to be my partner, something inside me finally snapped. It was Chloe's words that did it. She leaned in and whispered, just for me to hear, "Come on, honey. It's the least you can do. It's not like you need that money for anything important." Not for anything important. My entire life's work, the sleepless nights, the constant stress, the dream of one day having my own freedom. All of it dismissed as unimportant. For the first time, I saw them clearly, not as my family, but as a pack of wolves who had been feeding on me for years. A quiet calm washed over me. I looked at David, then at my parents, and finally at Chloe. And I said for the first time in my life, no. The silence that followed my no lasted for about 3 seconds before the room erupted. It was like I had thrown a grenade onto the table. David shot up from his chair, his face turning a blotchy red. "What do you mean, no? Are you serious? This is my future we're talking about. You're just jealous, that's all it is. You've always been jealous of me." My mother burst into tears, the crocodile kind I'd seen 100 times before. "Michael, how could you be so selfish? After everything we've done for you, you're tearing this family apart." My father just shook his head, his expression one of profound disappointment, as if I were a faulty piece of equipment. "This isn't how I raised you," he said, his voice low and cold. But my eyes were on Chloe. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. Her face went blank, and then a look of pure, unadulterated fury settled in her eyes. The mask was completely gone. She looked at me with contempt, as if I were a stranger who had just betrayed her. "Don't you dare do this, Michael," she hissed. "Don't you dare say no to them." In that moment, I knew. She was one of them. She had never been my partner. She was just another shareholder in Michael Inc., and I had just announced I was shutting the company down. The argument raged for an hour, but my resolve didn't break. It hardened. Finally, I stood up. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady. "I'm done with all of this." I looked directly at Chloe. "And we're done. I want a divorce." Panic flashed in her eyes. Not sadness, not heartbreak, but the pure terror of someone whose meal ticket was walking out the door. The divorce was ugly, just as I expected. She hired a shark of a lawyer and came after me for everything. She wanted the house, the car, half my salary, half my retirement. And to her and my family's shock, I agreed to almost all of it. I played the part of the defeated, heartbroken husband perfectly. They all thought I was a fool, that Chloe had taken me to the cleaners. They mocked me behind my back, celebrating her victory. Let them, I thought. Let them fight over the cage. They had no idea I was about to walk away with the key. I gave her the past. I was keeping the future, which I was quietly building every night, for myself. After the divorce, I was, on paper, a broken man. I moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. My bank account was nearly empty, and my flashy corporate job felt hollow. My family, as expected, completely cut me off. They sided with Chloe, painting me as the villain who had abandoned his family and his wife. I heard through the grapevine that Chloe, David, and my parents had a big divorce party to celebrate her freedom and the generous settlement I was paying. They thought I was finished. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt truly free. The crushing weight of their expectations was gone. Every dollar I earned was mine. Every hour was my own. And I poured all of it into my secret project. That's when I met Anna. She lived in the apartment down the hall. She was a kindergarten teacher, and her warmth felt like sunshine after a decade-long winter. The first time we spoke, I was carrying a heavy box of server equipment up the stairs, and she rushed to hold the door for me. She didn't see a failed man in a cheap apartment. She saw a guy who needed a hand. When I told her about the software I was building, her eyes lit up with genuine curiosity, not with the calculating glint I was so used to seeing in Chloe's. She would bring me coffee when I worked late, listen to me ramble about code she didn't understand, and celebrate every small milestone with me. She loved me when I had nothing, when I was nothing in the eyes of the world. For 2 years, I lived a quiet life. I worked my day job to pay the bills and my alimony, and I spent every other waking moment refining my software. Then, it happened. A mid-level tech company made me a modest offer to license my tool. I used that money to quit my job and focus on my project full-time. 6 months later, with the tool now fully developed and gaining traction, one of the giants of Silicon Valley came calling. The initial email felt like a dream. After weeks of negotiations, they made an offer not to license the tool, but to acquire my one-man company outright. The number they offered had 7 zeros at the end of it. The day the money hit my account, I just sat there staring at the screen. I hadn't just become a millionaire. I had bought back my life. and the first thing I did was ask Anna to marry me. Anna and I wanted a beautiful wedding, and for the first time in my life, I could afford to give her and myself exactly that without a second thought. We booked a historic estate for the venue, hired the best caterers, and sent out elegant invitations. We didn't do it to show off. We did it because we were happy and in love. But I'm not a fool. I knew that in a city this size, news travels, the venue booking, the names on the marriage license, it was only a matter of time before the information found its way back to my old life. And I was counting on it. This was the trap. My success wasn't the revenge. Their reaction to it would be. It took less than a week. The first call was from my mother. Her tone was shaky, a mix of awe and accusation. "Michael, your father and I heard a rumor that you did well for yourself." I kept my response brief and polite. The next day, David called. He tried to sound casual, like we were still best buds. "Hey bro, long time no see, so I hear congrats are in order. We should totally catch up, maybe talk about some new business ideas I've got cooking." The entitlement was breathtaking. He truly believed that after 2 years of silence, he could just slide back in and pitch me. But the most predictable call came from Chloe. Her first message was a text. "I heard about your windfall. I'm so happy for you. I always knew you had it in you. I miss you." When I didn't reply, the texts became more frequent, more desperate. They turned into voicemails, pleading, then demanding. "Michael, you owe me this," she slurred in one late-night message. "I was with you. I supported you. That money, that success, it should have been ours." She conveniently forgot the divorce party and the fact that she'd spent the last 2 years with my brother, living off the settlement she had celebrated taking from me. She learned from my family that my alimony payments were set to end upon my remarriage, and the panic set in. Her divorce regret wasn't emotional. It was a financial calculation. She saw a lottery ticket she had thrown in the trash, only to find out it was the grand prize winner. Her desperation grew with each passing day, and I knew she wouldn't let my wedding day go by without a fight. Which brings us back to the moment the doors burst open. As Chloe stood there, sobbing about her mistake, a strange calm settled over me. This wasn't a surprise. It was an inevitability. It was the final scene of a play I had been writing for 2 years. I gave Anna's hand a reassuring squeeze and turned to face my ex-wife. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. I let her finish her tirade about our supposed undying love and her terrible regret. The guests, a mix of Anna's loving family and my new respected colleagues, watched in stunned silence. In the third row, I could see my parents and my brother David, who I had invited out of a sense of cold, clinical curiosity. They looked horrified, not for me, but because Chloe was making a scene that would embarrass them. When she finally paused to take a breath, I spoke, my voice carrying easily in the silent hall. "You're right about one thing, Chloe. You did make a mistake." Her face briefly filled with hope. "You thought the man you divorced was the same man I am today. You thought my value was the alimony check you cashed every month." I took a step toward her, closing the distance. "Let's be honest with everyone here. You don't regret losing me. You regret that those alimony payments stopped the moment I say I do. You didn't miss me when you and my brother were spending my settlement money. You didn't miss me for 2 years. You only started missing me when you heard I had something you wanted. Your regret isn't about love. It's about money." A wave of murmurs swept through the room. Chloe's face went from tear-streaked to pale white. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She was exposed, her greedy motives laid bare for everyone to see. At that moment, 2 security guards I had hired specifically for this possibility appeared at the doors. They were large, professional, and moved without haste. I nodded to them. "Chloe is no longer a guest," I said calmly. "Please escort her out." She didn't fight. The performance was over. As they led her away, her eyes met mine one last time. There was no love, no sadness, just pure, impotent rage. I turned back to the front, faced my beautiful, unshaken bride, and smiled. I looked at the officiant. "Please, continue." The rest of the wedding was perfect. After the initial shock, the mood in the room transformed into one of overwhelming support. It was as if, by ejecting Chloe, we had purged all the toxicity of my past, leaving only warmth and genuine celebration. Anna was radiant. She had faced the ugliest part of my history with grace and strength, proving to me and everyone there that our foundation was unbreakable. We said our vows, our voices clear and steady, and when the officiant finally declared us husband and wife, the applause was thunderous. As I looked at my parents and brother, I saw them for what they were: defeated. They had come expecting to intimidate their way back into my wallet, but instead, they witnessed their own irrelevance. They slipped out during the reception without a word. The day after we returned from our honeymoon, I had my lawyer file a restraining order against Chloe, citing her months-long campaign of harassment that culminated at our wedding. The judge granted it without hesitation. Her last financial lifeline, the alimony, was gone. The settlement money, as I later heard, had been mostly spent on propping up David's lifestyle and funding my parents' delusions of grandeur. She was left with nothing but the consequences of her own greed. My family tried to reach me one last time. A letter arrived from my mother, filled with the usual cocktail of guilt, blame, and a desperate plea for financial help, claiming David was in some new trouble and that it was my duty as a son and brother to fix it. I didn't open it. I wrote "Return to Sender" on the envelope and dropped it in the mail. Then I blocked their numbers, their emails, and every possible avenue they had to my new life. It wasn't an act of anger. It was an act of peace. My revenge was never about destroying them. It was about building a life so full and so happy that their existence no longer mattered. It was about proving that the scapegoat they tried to break was the architect of his own salvation. Today, my life is quiet. It's filled with love from a woman who values my heart, not my wallet. It's filled with the satisfaction of work that I love. The ghosts of my past are silent, banished not by shouting, but by the simple, powerful act of closing a door and refusing to open it ever again. They wanted to ruin my new beginning, but all they did was prove how necessary it was.